Hey everybody, Capt Ron here, back from a little bit of a mini vacation. I went to visit. I had some friends staying. The children of a fearful flyer from Denmark who's become a good friend, and so I invited them over last year, and then their children came over. So we went up to visit my son. We went up to, hey everybody, Capt Ron here again. I just noticed that we did a refresh or a reset in there. Back from a short vacation, thanks to Dieter and Eric for standing in and covering for me last week, which they're going to have to do for the next couple of weeks because I'm going to get to go to Europe again this year, and I'm excited about it. And I think that the clock is not going to work out for me to even join. It's just I value sleeping a little bit too much, and it's in the middle of the night over there. But nonetheless, I'll bring back some stories. I'm sure have some really interesting events planned. I'm going with a former fearful flyer, and just he and I, and we're looking forward to it. So I'll bring some stories back with you or with me, and share my experiences, both flying and non-flying. So let's see. So yeah, so I was gone for 4 days, got back on Saturday, and welcome all of you. This is the place, Fearless Flight Live, where you can come if you either have a fear of flying, if you know somebody who's afraid to fly, or if you just like to talk about airplanes and the airline industry with us. We enjoy that for sure. And with me, of course, is Dieter Staudinger. Top of the evening, Dieter. He and I, of course, talk many times during the week. He lives up in Toronto, and he's the technical brains to a lot of the stuff that we have that enables us to extend our reach around the world, and things like the classes and enrolling and the harmonizer, all those things there. So, okay, we got what I think is a fun show tonight. It's 4th of July. Happy 4th of July to any of us in the US of A. We are glad that you have decided to show up and watch us. I think I'm sharing. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
you are.
Birds of a feather, and we're 1,400 on our way to 1,500 people who are in the Birds of a Feather. It is a great vehicle. I have so many people, and of course, not everybody's active all the time, but we have a nice critical mass so that people can, when they're kind of current in there, new people coming on. We encourage everybody to join this, introduce yourself, and leave a message when you're on there. We go on and peruse it tonight. I think Dieter has a story on there. So from the Birds of a Feather group.
Yes, I do. And it's a really sweet success story. Robin just posted yesterday that I just wanted to say I finally did it. After 25 years of not flying, I was finally able to get on the plane. So congratulations. And what's even better is she writes, the sense of relief is overwhelming. And it wasn't easy, but I managed, and that's what matters. Thank you to this group and for all of your support. And there's like 40 plus comments and just super amazing insights from some of the people that felt, that were inspired by Robin's success, and new commitments made to, to get over fear of flying, or to get back into the course, for example. So it's really exciting when people share their successes, because it inspires others as well. So thank you, Robin.
Yeah, it does, and that is kind of gonna be a little bit of the theme tonight. We are going to look at we're going to look at whatever I can get my finger.
Yeah, we're gonna look at the lucky slide of the night.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the show topic.
So we're gonna talk again about I have just coaching sessions every week, 15-minute, 60-minute coaching sessions continuously. I'm going to talk about some successes tonight and build on what this one that Dieter just shared with us. And just to show you, this is not even typical for me. I usually have more than this. And people that write me and text me how they're doing. And I love the feedback. We love the feedback. We love the interaction with you when you're out there flying and doing the work. And of course, we'll entertain questions. We'll highlight the 201 online course, because that's beginning to be more and more the foundation for the people who are having success. And I'll talk about that tonight, and the live coaching webinars and the Fearless Flyer Club. So, okay. So tonight, this is a little segue. So I go away. My life is not all about fear of flying. I went away, came home Saturday night, and one of my guests walked in front of my main bathroom, and it felt like a big squishy there. And lo and behold, I had water leaking somewhere, and it ran all the way from the master bed, the walk-in closet in my master bedroom, all the way out the hall, around the corner, in front of the main bath, and around into the kitchen. And of course, it was Saturday night of a major holiday weekend in the United States. So nobody is going to come and help. And so it may not be anxiety over flying, but let me tell you, it reminded me what life is really about. So, so hard to believe such a little bitty leak can cause such damage. And so if you come and visit me right now, it looks like something out of the Ukraine here. With the floors ripped up and all that. And any of you have ever had damage like that, you know what it is. Okay. Quick mention about the 15-minute coaching call. If you haven't done one, please consider that. It's how many of the people get started. And we're going to just transition into that a little bit here. This is the core of the intake information. If you do a 15-minute coaching call, this is what you're going to be asked. Do you have plans to fly in the next 90 days? And so I've got just a couple of examples here of real people just like yourselves. And I wanted to, kind of let you identify with some of the issues that people report. You'll see some similarities and some may be different from you. And this person, like many people, either has a ticket or they're trying to get their courage up to fly within the next 90 days or so. And then the second thing is, I didn't include here, but is something that comes up often is, when did their first fear was, it's what's perplexing is this person flew without issues until they had a bad experience. And while that makes some sense, many people just don't even have that. They flew for many years as children growing up through college and stuff, and then they got out into life, and all of a sudden they started to notice that their attention was being hijacked by some aspect of either a recollection on a bad experience on a flight, or just maybe related to other anxiety in their lives. It does mirror post-traumatic stress disorder, or at least traumatic stress. And so that's where I've spent a lot of the time personally recovering from my own PTSD in my life. And I noticed that that's a common theme for many of the fearful flyers. So this person, out of nowhere started having a flight. And this person was also is taking light airplane lessons, and but had a bad experience down in the Bahamas in a smaller airplane, and that triggered him and stuck with him. And the last additional information, just really need to speak to somebody. So that's a good reason to do a 15-minute coaching call. Here again, another person flying regularly, which go figure, and has plans to fly in the next 90 days again. And again, flew without issues for much of her life, until one day she just noticed that and that's the key. Once your attention gets hijacked, now it like forms a new pathway in your brain, and now it's easier and easier to get focused and obsessed with that. So, and this particular person had a really tough time growing up. Happened to grow up in another country where there was some authoritarian regime and in a war with another country, and they actually fled that. So it's sometimes we displace our fears onto flying, which is a very common thing, and that seems to be what happened to her. So, but she's hanging in there. She's working on it and looking forward to fly. And so are we. We're looking forward to helping her. Let's see. There was one. I'm going to skip through. This is another one. I had quite a few of these, and I wanted to highlight one in particular. Yeah, here's one that. I had two people actually this past week. One of them had called me and asked me about. Let me change my slide. One of them had called me, and I recommend to people to make a list of questions that they want to ask. It makes it more effective, and it helps me focus on their to make the session more efficient. And one of her questions was, well, do you ever have problems getting the landing gear down? So I went ahead to explain to her that all of the Boeing products, all you got to do is you pull on a cable, it unlocks a mechanism, and gravity pulls the landing gear down. Just never a problem. Other airplanes have a crank that literally they crank the landing gear down. But that's the last thing. And I told her, you hardly ever hear about that. And I couldn't think of a recent event. And I further added that when I was growing up in my love of aviation, I'd watch all these airplane movies, and the only way that they could work the aviation in the plot theme sometimes was the failure of the landing gear to extend. So there was a lot about that. So, so it was always, no matter what happened, they couldn't get the landing gear down. So then I said, yeah, it hardly ever happens. And then, let me share my screen here. And then what we found out was, it's over here. Literally in the news that day was a story about a Delta MD-82. I didn't even know they were still flying these things. Not that they're unsafe or anything, but this one they couldn't get the nose gear down. And it has, the airplane itself is quite long. If you've ever ridden on an MD-82. It was built by McDonnell Douglas, which is now owned by Boeing, and it's close to the ground, so you can see. You can hardly. I mean, obviously, you can see there's no nose gear under there, but the main gear down there, so it's hardly even noticeable from the pitch attitude. So I joked with her. I said, we always say that a good landing is one you can walk away from, and a great landing is one where you can reuse the airplane. Ha ha ha! It's a joke, but there's truth in that. And I pointed out to her, literally just the day before this happened, that landing the airplane without the wheels, other than the damage it does to the airplane, is really not a big deal. It's, of course, it's not preferred, but you can see everybody evacuated. I don't even think they had injuries on the evacuation, and you can see why. That because not only is the airplane low to the ground to start with, but without the nose gear, they're even closer. So, all they did was give Delta some bad PR that day, and give some people like you out there, all of you, another reason to be anxious about things. Okay, so I wanted to share. If you got any comments or anything, Dieter, let me know. I've got well, I think what I'll do is I'll share some of the success stories that we've had.
Yeah, I think we're ready for the successes.
Yeah, no kidding. We did save that for last, and okay.
And the one thing I will say, that every success is always preceded by the courage to be with one's discomfort and be with one's thoughts and feelings long enough to actually recognize that you are not those thoughts and feelings. And I love this one from Joe.
Yeah. And what Dieter's talking about, the way I've heard it expressed is, we have fears, we have anxiety, but that's not all of who we are. And we forget that in the moment, particularly with fear flying, because it is such an alarming, overwhelming sense of dread, because we use our biology to alert us because that's how we keep ourselves alive and how we've evolved. But here's one from Joe. She got down here, and so I got a little bit of a cross section here. Joe called me 72 hours before her flight, 15-minute coaching session, and those are some of the most fun I have. They're challenges because, you know, people, they think they're going to something's going to change from the last time they flew, and then they get close and they realize that it's not, or they're hoping for a miracle or whatever. So what we did was, she had done a 15-minute coaching call for initial contact last week, and then 3 days later, a day before she ended up flying, we did a 60-minute coaching session, and she purchased the FFK so she could listen to the harmonizer. And this is her, says, "Hey, thank you again for chatting with me. Earlier, we just touched down in Mexico. I watched the Takeoff harmonizer that has a video and an audio version of that, and then she says she went from video to audio, had her breathing in tune with the video. Can't thank you enough, and thank you for the feedback, Joe. We really appreciate it. So and like I said, this is a common occurrence for us here. I get these things every day. There's not a day that goes by that I don't get something. Sometimes it's from people who have gone through 15, 20 years ago. Sometimes it's people that are really current. These happen to be fairly recent. So here's another one, 15-minute coaching call. Way back when, I'm going to say 3 or 4 months ago, and then again, kind of hoping that it would get better, then came up last week, had to do a flight for business, and then had one right after that with a family member. And so she checked in with me again, did a 60-minute coaching call the day of her flight. And she got the FFK and got that and relied on that. So here it is, getting ready to board. She texted me, and I love it when you all text me, because it makes it real for me. And she flew, and this was after her second flight, which was, I think, a couple of days after the first one. And the other thing I like is it helps remind you all that it's very unlikely that you're gonna go and your next flight is going to have zero anxiety. It just doesn't happen. You need to remember that the anxiety is not going to completely disappear. It's gonna come and it's gonna go. But the best thing is you're going to have a better experience than the last time. And with that, what you need to get on the airplane is the confidence that you're going to manage your emotions. Whether you happen to be one of the more mechanical fearful flyers, that is to say, you are actually worried about the mechanics of the airplane, or whether you're more of an emotional fearful flyer, where you're more worried about your own personal limitations and ability to cope in there. They both, the 201 course and the tools that we have are all designed to get you to the same point in the end, and that's to give you the confidence that you're going to manage the emotions that percolate out of either one of those categories. Okay. And that's the big thing. And so I like it when people send me, in like the last one said, yeah, for 15 to 30 minutes or so, it took me a little bit to calm down. But I say, if you can get through the first 2 minutes, and that's why you need to have a plan, and whether it's through one-to-one coaching or on a longer term basis, the 201 course, it'll help you come up with a plan. You need to have a plan, because your anxiety does have a plan. I guarantee you, it is already in motion, and many of you know that really well. So, okay, and then let me do.
And it has rehearsed that plan, and so that's why we're encouraging you to rehearse a new plan. And I also want to quickly shout out to David. David says he's going to have a flight coming up in August. It'll be 18 years since he's been home to his home country, and I believe it's Puerto Rico. So, that is really powerful, and that's why we really do say it can be life-changing. Absolutely,
and keep those cards and letters coming, folks, because we love to hear about this. And here's a person that just signed up with us about a month ago, enrolled in the 201 course, got right on it. It gave me a lot of good feedback about things that really helped per in that, and we'll review it again. But you get the 60 days of access to the course. You get 2 monthly coaching webinars, the live coaching that we do, which we're getting more and more people signing up for that to do that, so that you can stay connected to us. And so here's the actual information or feedback through a text messages, feeling anxious about the flights. And I wrote back, I said, if you didn't feel anxiety, I would be more worried about it because as I said, it's going to be a process. And so when you get on there, and your brain has to actually be activated, your amygdala has to be activated before you can get the therapeutic benefits of all the work that you've done. But you'll see this, and I wrote her a message, and I made some comments, and she was in the coaching call in May, and there was a person in there named Eileen that had written in, I think in the Birds of a Feather, talking about the weather, worrying about the weather, thunder, lightning, and all that. But she stuck with this. It said hadn't canceled her flight, and then she continued to text me. Typical Albuquerque, bumpy on the way up, but smooth now. Met the pilot, nice man. I can't tell you how many people give me feedback about how relaxing it is to meet the flight attendant and the pilots there. And she compliments both. Pilot was very helpful and had a few tears, which is very common for a lot of you with the stress levels that you get to. And the flight attendant wrote out a little calming exercise. How adorable is that? It's cool. If you reach out to people more often than not, you'll get a real positive response. So we really, really like that. Okay.
So Ron,
yeah, go ahead.
We have a question, and Daniel wanted to know what exactly do you recommend how to manage those first 2 minutes? And I am gonna say, I will start with this, and then I'll just let you take it from there. The first thing is that you start with those first 2 minutes, ideally, at least a week. And depending on how anxious you are, 2 weeks in advance, so that when those 2 minutes actually occur, that you are prepared. You're not walking in there wondering what you're going to think about and how it's going to be. You need that preparation time to rehearse your flight. We call it your flight plan, but it's a new plan compared to the one that your anxiety was dictating before. So I just want to really say that, because it doesn't start with getting to the airport or sitting at the gate or walking down the jet bridge. It really starts a week at least. And I would encourage you even more than that to practice. And depending on what your trigger is, that will determine what the thing is for you to focus on and practice. But Ron, go ahead.
Yeah, in general, it's the Fearless Flight method. Educate. Our foundation is an educational platform. We're going to help you teach, even for those of you who say, I know everything there is to know about flying and aerodynamics and all that. That's not the point. What the point is when you get anxious and you get overwhelmed, the biology triggers, and then it's a catch-up battle after that. And what Dieter's alluding to is you need to start before. We recommend 3 to 4 weeks beforehand. So it's not going to be like a lifelong sentence that you're going to have to keep doing this every day, 24/7. It's just when you get in. And what we help people with is find a process. Everybody's unique, but there are some common themes in there, and that's what the 201 course is like. So that the basis for this on the long term, if you have more than a week, is to take a look at the 201 course and get into the live coaching session. So it's really good. We have people every week that join us who are in the process of either recovering from a past experience or getting ready for an upcoming flight. So educate, number one. Second thing is distraction. That's where the harmonizer comes in. You need something that is more automatic. I love audio. Audio has been successful for so many of the people that I've worked with over the years. You need something to talk to you so that when you get elevated, when you get up in the 7, 8, 9 layer or levels of stress, you need something where you don't even have to formulate the words, and the harmonizer does that. It talks to you. A lot of people use it now, even just as a daily meditation, regardless of their intents about flying and that. And so that's it. So educate, Second step is interrupt your thinking with distractions, and that's what the harmonizer is all about. And a lot of the audios, we come out of each coaching session with an audio now, or a visualization, and we're adding more and more visualizations to the 201 course. And then the last thing is what you're doing right now, if you're watching this or the replay, is you're joining a group of other people and participating in the sense of community that comes to help reinforce that you are not the only one. And you are not the only one. You have to come to grips with that, and because when we think we're the only one, we tend to isolate and just keep mulling over the same information. That there's something wrong with me, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's just your normal fight or flight or survival instinct that's become out of control. It's running amok, and the underlying thing about flying is we just don't do it enough. The average person doesn't do that enough, and so we don't have a chance to internalize those experiences. You've all had bad experiences in a car, but usually you get right back in there, and it doesn't play in your mind. You don't have to look for how to get back into driving course. But flying is different, and it has a mystique about it. Even when I look at those big old airplanes out there, there is a part of me that says it's pretty amazing that thing not only will get into the air, but stay in the air. So educate, distract, disrupt, interrupt your thinking, the Fearless Flight Harmonizer, and keep connected to the community here. And those are the things that we really.
I'm just going to add to that. It's really important that your trigger, and you may argue, of course I know my trigger, I'm blah, 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 blah. But I mean, knowing your trigger means that you also already understand what it is that you can put in place before it even fires, okay? And that's a bit of a segue, because this will be the topic of our monthly group coaching webinar this month. And that's exactly it. Knowing our triggers and what to do before they even fire. That's the key, because like Ron said in the beginning of the show, once the biology takes over, you may not be at a level, and when I say that, 7, 6, 5, anywhere there, where it's going to be easy for you to then just switch gears, so to speak. And so that's why preparation is really, really the key here. And there's
on a level of 1 to 10, which is the way we usually talk about anxiety and how anxious you get when you're triggered. If you get on the airplane and you're already at a 9 or a 10, you've got no wiggle room. There's nowhere to go. And the chance of staying out of panic or certainly overwhelming anxiety is really, really limited. What you need to do is come up with a plan, which Dieter's talked about earlier this evening, and you need to have a way to implement that plan. Then you need some like emergency things like the harmonizer or some of the techniques we talk about if you're flying with somebody, how they can support you. And but you have to have a plan in there for winning it. And that's how you get through the first 2 minutes. Think about it. If you have something for the first 2 minutes from the time you take off and just barely into the air, most people say, once I get through that, I can relax. But if you're wired, by the time the pilots move the throttles up for takeoff and you start feeling all those sensations, seeing all those sights and hearing all those sounds in there, it's pretty tough to put the genie back in the bottle, if you will. So this month, I put June 20th. I apologize. That should be July 20th. So it's the right number, but the wrong month. It'll be July 20th, 2023. It's a Thursday night. It's the third Thursday of the month, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 Eastern time. And we're going to be talking about, as Dear said, identifying and manage your triggers before they fire. So before they get a foothold in you, and we're going to talk about strategies and tools to help you prepare for your next flight. And we'll talk about the 201 online course, that we have more and more people graduating from that now. And of the people tonight, 4 out of the 6 success stories had some experience with the 201 course. So it's a great tool, and it's really gives you a deep-seated understanding of your fear and tools and strategies and techniques to manage it. It's on demand. It comes with an app, the FF or the FearlessFlight app by Zenler there, so you can do it whenever you want, wherever you want. And then we have a monthly live coaching webinar every third Thursday every month. As I said, you get it. There's an internal community within the course itself. It's for people to share their stories. Some of the activities are to write your story, and then the goal of the course is to help rewrite your story, and then more and more content, which I'm adding as we speak or as we talk tonight. So, and then what we recommend for a lot of people, if you have taken the course, is to stay connected to us and join our Fearless Flyer Club, where you can continue to not only have monthly coaching live experiences, but also if you've taken the 201 course, you have access to the course content on an ongoing basis. Because as I said, the course is dynamic. We're always adding to that. Okay. Here's just a close-up of the app, what it looks like on my phone, because I have access to all of these tools and programs in there. So
we do have another question, and that's a good one, Sharon. And it's not as uncommon as you might think, and that is Sharon reports, my trigger has changed. My last flight 2 weeks ago, I became afraid of heights on my flight. This has never happened to me before. The flight attendant really helped, but I was really struggling for about 20 minutes or so, it seemed. How do I get myself calmed down? Any thoughts? Well, first of all, you made me curious to think what was your trigger that you're familiar with, because, as you wrote, being afraid of heights wasn't really a trigger for you before. But Ron, do you want to comment on?
Yeah. So heights it's a great example. It's not about what happens to you in life. It's about the story that you tell yourself. And that's why you say you've got to change your story. You got to change the way you think about flying. One of my best friends, a pilot, he flew from the time he was 14 years old. He happened to be 6'4". So we laughed when he said he was afraid of heights, because he's already up there with his head in the clouds. But you couldn't get him up above the first rung of a ladder, and he would get shaky and all that. But yet when he flew, the story he told himself was not about being in the air. It was about, he could stomp his foot and feel the floorboard of the airplane. So it's a great example of, no matter who you are, heights can be one of the triggers. And again, Sharon, it's a very common trigger for people. Fear of flying starts them to think you have an image of an airplane in the sky, and now it becomes like your thoughts are like not being in an airplane with a sense of protection and enclosure and all that, but being on a ladder that's 35,000 feet tall. Of course, if I thought that I was up there and could fall off of a ladder at 35,000 feet, it makes perfect sense that I would have anxiety over that. But
Sharon, just so Ron, Sharon just mentioned her trigger had been turbulence before.
Sure.
And it actually, on that flight, I assume the turbulence seemed to calm her down. So,
which is interesting,
probably because it disrupted the fear of the height.
Whatever reason, it's a sense of some people have trouble imagining, and some people they're few and far between, but kind of like Sharon, some people turbulence doesn't bother them. Turbulence is a big trigger for a lot of people, but other people, if it's so calm, they get spooked. It's kind of like an episode of The Twilight Zone. They expect to look out the window and see a gremlin looking in because flying shouldn't be that effortless. And so it triggers them. So, but again, they're all related to the story that gets triggered in your mind. And that's why we work on triggers. That's the first step. Identify your trigger, what caused it, and then maybe you can get some insights as to that will help as to how you got that way. But it's not important to figure out the insights as to why you got that way. It's important to know the tools and the strategies for how you're going to get through it. And heights are very common. Heights, turbulence, takeoff, sights, sound, sensations. Everybody has their own unique footprint for what their fear looks like. So
I have a little recipe there for you, because now your mind might be, oh my God, what's gonna be my next trigger? You know, what's gonna set me off? So what I would encourage you, kind of like a mantra where you say, you know, I'm gonna get on this airplane, and no matter what is gonna be my trigger here today, I'm gonna meet it with, you know, my 4-6 breathing. And 4-6 breathing is one of the things that we teach here at Fearless Flight. And you know, you can use, Ron always shows his phone, you can use your phone, because you want actually the cadence of 4-6, and you might count way faster in your head. So looking at your phone will actually help you, breathing in for 4 and then breathing out for 6. And you know, in the Fearless Flyer Club and in the 201, we also have a visualization that can help you with that, with a breathing bubble. And yeah, and Sharon says, yeah, I've been worried about that. Well, that would be the most obvious worry for me. If I can't even rely on the trigger that I know that scares me. So the best recipe for that is then to say, no matter what trigger shows up here today, this is how I'm gonna meet it. And you know, like Ron said, you just have your phone there and you focus on your breathing.
Yeah. We call these actionable tasks. So they not only are something that's going to involve your mind in a different way, but you're going to use your tactile senses, your kinesthetic sense about you. You're going to have things to do. The more senses that you can engage when you're trying to come up with defenses and skills, strategies, and techniques to cope with your fears, the less room you have for your mind to run off, you know, have a mind of its own, so to speak. And so that's what the course does. We identify the triggers, educate you through that, give you some tools and some skills to overcome it, and have you keep coming back to the community to share your experiences with others. The common theme, which you heard in the successes tonight, everybody started at about the same place. They had some sort of a trigger that they couldn't quit thinking about, and they got some sort of education to make a difference. If you continue to think the same way you've always thought, you're probably going to have the same results that you've always gotten before. So, all right. Thanks for participating out there, everybody. Thanks, Dieter, do you guys have an equivalent to our 4th of July? Probably not. Right?
Actually, we just had Canada Day weekend, which is July 1st, and
okay.
So, but because it's the same, you know, it fell kind of like on that same weekend. We had the Monday off as well. So yeah.
So anyway, happy 4th of July, everybody out there. Thanks, Dieter. Thanks all of you, and keep coming back every week to stay tuned up with Fearless Flight Live. We'll see everybody. Have a great week.